Hello there, welcome to yet another exciting edition of the AAU Talks. We are showing live on the AAU TV. Feel free to join us with your comments and feedback on the Facebook page of the Association of African Universities and also on Twitter at AAU_67. My name is Felicia Kuagbedzi and I'm the host for the show. Today we are focusing our discussion on open, distance and e-learning. And I have a very special guest with me who will be taking us through this topic. Don't go anywhere, do stay tuned. We'll be back shortly to give you all the details.
The Federal University of Technology, Akure, FUTA, was established in 1981 to promote science and technology education in Nigeria. FUTA has 8 schools: School of Agriculture and Agricultural Technology, School of Sciences, School of Engineering and Engineering Technology, School of Earth and Mineral Sciences, School of Environmental Technology, School of Management Technology, School of Health and Health Technology, School of Computing, and the School of Postgraduate Studies. The university has also grown rapidly in terms of students' enrollment, with a population of approximately 20,000 undergraduates. In addition to the 8 schools, FUTA also has specialized research and allied centers for ease of academic and research administration. FUTA enjoys flourishing academic relationships with several reputable centers of excellence in teaching and research. Over the years, the university has contributed tremendously to national development through critical research, breakthroughs, and production of more than 25,000 graduates who are trailblazers in different areas of the economy. The university has carved a niche for itself in cutting-edge research. It's won and is hosting the World Bank Center of Excellence in Food Security. It also hosts the West African Science Service Center for Climate Change and Adapted Land Use, WASCA, financed by the German government. FUTA emerged the winner of the 2015 edition of the National Mathematical Championship for university students, among other distinctions. FUTA remains one of the most peaceful universities in Nigeria, one university with calendar stability and predictability that prides itself in high-caliber scholarship, professionalism, manpower development in science, technical, and engineering education. FUTA, technology for self-reliance.
Thanks for staying tuned. For those who just joined, our topic for discussion today is on open, distance, and e-learning. And as I mentioned earlier, I have a very special guest who is joining us to do this discussion. Our guest on the show today is the Foundation Vice Chancellor and a Professor Emeritus of the National Open University of Nigeria. He's also the immediate past secretary to the government of Kogi State in Nigeria and the immediate past secretary general of the Association of African Universities. During the 26th World Conference on International Council for Open and Distance Education, which was held in 2015, he was awarded the Prize of Excellence for his lifelong contribution to open and distance learning. Ladies and gentlemen, the guest on the show today is in the person of Professor Ougbemiro Jegede. Welcome to the show, Prof.
Thank you very much, Felicia.
Okay. Having been the past SG of AAU, I think Accra is not new to you, neither is Ghana.
No.
Okay, so what brings you here this time?
Well, I was invited to give a keynote address at the first international conference on open distance and e-learning, which was held at the University of Ghana, Legon, and I think it's a consortium of various universities that form the open and distance learning in Ghana that invited me. So,
Which means this is very much in line with our discussion
yes,
today.
I think, yes, it's very much in line with it. And, yes.
So, Prof, let's just start our discussion by trying to unpack the whole concept of open, distance, and e-learning. What does it really entail?
Yes. Open and distance learning is a mode of teaching that engenders different styles of learning, different from the face-to-face brick-and-mortar type of institutions that we have. It's open and distance learning and e-learning does not require a student to be at the same place as where the teacher is.
Okay.
So in fact, the definition of open and distance learning is that there's a separation between the learner and the teacher, and that you use various methods, print, technology, and other things to communicate with the student, to have a communication with the student, and the student communicating with the lecturer and with other students.
Okay.
It tries to use economies of scale, and it attempts to ensure that students are taken care of. Every student is, in fact, they call it the last mile. That is, the last student must be given the same treatment as the very first student that you have. It's not like you just put them in a class and it doesn't matter who listens at the end of your lecture. It doesn't matter who learns or who doesn't learn. Everybody is given equal treatment. So it therefore allows access. It enhances access to education. It allows massification of education. It brings down cost in the end, and it allows government or any institution that undertakes open and distance and is e-learning keys in with the national objectives of a nation. And it makes sure that the open and distance learning it offers keys in also with the vision and mission of that university.
Okay, which is very good in terms of trying to increase access to the general populace.
Exactly.
But as it allows for more people to enroll onto programs and take courses which ordinarily they wouldn't have been able to do due to work or due to some other reasons. Are there some quality issues? Are we sure that open and distance and e-learning is giving students the same level of quality curriculum, quality programs, such that students are able to come out from these programs and they are fit for purpose? Do we have the same when it comes to ODL?
Yes, it does. In terms of quality, let me start by saying that UNESCO in 2013 has said that there are 5 main factors contributing to quality education. They are well-trained teachers and researchers. We must have adequate facilities for students. There must be quality assurance, and there must be an adoption of ICT. Now, in a system whereby you provide an alternative mode to the formal face-to-face teaching, there's definitely a set of differences that we need to be looked at. We say that open and distance learning provides huge access. So it opens up the access. Many more people will go through the system than before. For example, if this studio will normally take maximum 100 people, and we are talking on a face-to-face, it is possible for us to do this same thing or talk to the students where we are not restricted by the 4 walls of this place. So they can be anywhere. And because of that, it allows so many people to do that. Once that comes in, then the issue of cost will come in, then the issue of quality comes in. Quality is getting it right the first time. Quality is making sure that there is zero defect. Quality means it's of a very, very high standard, excellent standard, or exceptional standard. Quality also means it fits the purpose for which it has been done. There is actually no need, no fears about quality in open and distance learning. In fact, I can tell you, having been in this field for several years, that the quality of the students, the materials, the infrastructure, the timing, the facilitation, and all that's given to the student is in fact equal to, if not better than those in a face-to-face system.
Prof, how about examinations, for instance, where you can sit in your own room and take the exams? Isn't there the possibility of me having a pile of books close by me or having someone assist me do that?
Okay, I have 2 answers to that. The first one is to give you the normal answer on the distance learning system. But the next one is to give you a more very radical answer that I have. The first is that there is no difference, and quality is not compromised in examination, because the students are made to take exams. In fact, these days, many open and distance learning institutions go for e-examinations.
Okay.
And as soon and you go into a studio or a computer center or many of these computer rooms. In fact, in some countries now, they are now having various places where they have as many as 1,000 computers in a particular setting, and there are people, they are subletting these things out for people to do it. You just go there, you go in front of a computer, you log in your name, or you do any way they can check you, whether it's biometrics or whatever, they check you. You get in front of a computer, and you just put your name, your student number, and the questions come.
So that is more of like a blended approach, is that
well,
correct?
it is, yes, because you can do it whichever. And what it means, therefore, is that, and what is so interesting is that they have found that cheating and examination malpractices are more in the face-to-face than in open and distance learning.
Is that so?
In the face-to-face, I'm sitting next to a student, and I'm asking him, oh, what is the answer to question 10? And he tells me or something. Or I'm so close to him, and but in the e-examination system of open and distance learning, whereas we may be sitting close to each other, if we're going to answer 50 questions on the computer, mine is iterated in such a way that your question 1 will not be my question 1.
Is that really the case on the
That is really the case. Because it will mean that my question 1 may be your question 50, and you wouldn't know. So that way, examination malpractices are reduced, the quality is assured, and they make sure that, and indeed, and as soon as you are leaving, your results are ready. And in fact, you can just go press a button and say, print my results, and they print your results, and you take it away. But I told you that I have, a
radical, yes, exactly.
A radical issue is that, for me as a lecturer, I don't have any problems at all with a student coming into my exam halls with books. If you have an exam that will last for 1 hour, even 3 hours, and you come with books, you'll be the one that will suffer because you spend more time looking through the books than writing it. There's nothing wrong with it. You can aid yourself with it.
Prof, is
you
this
can bring
system adopted anywhere?
Yeah, there's open book exams in many places of the world. You can do it. But the more radical way is that, why do we need exams? Exams were meant for the 18th century, 19th century, and probably the 20th century. In the 21st century, you no more need examinations.
What should we introduce
What
then?
you should introduce is a way of making sure that on a very regular, probably even daily basis, we monitor the progress of that student. And that the lecturers, the facilitators know the students in such a way that they can easily say that, yes, this student is good, he doesn't need. Or you also have a portfolio of various achievements that the student, various signposts that the student must get to. You can have 10% face-to-face discussion with the student. You can have 20–30% of projects. You can have another 10% of whatever. So as of practical things. So it will have a smorgasbord of so many things that the students will do that at the end, the lecturers or facilitators will be able to access and say the student has passed. But when you now base our system like we are doing now on a one-shot exam,
for 1 hour,
for just 1 hour, for something the student has learned for 3 years, something is wrong. The system is wrong. Because that particular morning, the student might have malaria. Or that particular morning, the student might hear his father died. We also know that because no two individuals are exactly alike, we also know that a single person may not actualize his potentials exactly the same in 2 or 3 different situations. So if you give me an exam today, the answers I will give you, and you mark it, you give me 98%. When you ask me to do the same exam tomorrow or in another week, I won't get the same thing. So there is therefore no correlation, no validity, no reliability in what is happening. So because of that, a system should be devised in such a way that you look at portfolio of activities of a student. You no more look at examination the way we know it. And that is, and in any case, we are looking at proficiency. In proficiency, you shouldn't be looking at exam. I mean, it's like, particularly when I'm talking about entrepreneurship now, you want to take a student through how to make as a carpenter, you take him to a carpentry shop, how to construct a table.
And things.
All I'm interested is if this student has been able to construct the table to meet with certain parameters. All right? That's all. I don't need to be asking him in a classroom, remove from that particular recall, how do you do this, how do you do that, how do you do that. And we also need to have skills mapping of every subject and every entrepreneurship, everything you want a student to be able to do, every vocation, so once you can map it out and say, these are the skills required. A laundry person, a hairdresser, or an event manager, or a mobile phone repairer, or whatever, that at the end of the person's 3-4 year whatever system, the person should have acquire all these skills. Once you can check that the person acquired these skills through very many ways, apart from the just, come and sit down and write tests, then of course you are done. And that brings the student becomes more confident. The student is able to bring in experiences the person has had outside. We'll bring in some practical details into it, and we even bring in a number of community and environmental issues to bear on, and it becomes a total comprehensive education that we are looking at.
Prof, you kept saying we need to change this, we need to do this. Who are those stakeholders who are supposed to pick some of these things up and make sure they implement?
The stakeholders that should change are, one, not in any particular order, but one, the universities or institutions. 2, the ministries of education should learn from whatever is happening. 3, the parents. 4.
How do parents come in here?
The parents can come in because many schools, many institutions have allowed parents either visiting days or open days for parents, or in lower institutions they have parent teachers association. So parents can come in and make contributions. In open days at the universities, parents, because these days there is no more a single way to acquire knowledge. Knowledge is everywhere there. There's so much knowledge going on in the internet and all that. Even parents can pick it up and say, but hey, this is happening elsewhere, why are you not doing it? They can suggest it. So all of them can come together. Industry should also, in fact, these days, I believe that industries have got more contribution to make than they used to make.
To higher education.
Because the world is now becoming a single place for everybody to live in. The industries, they are the ones that consume the products of universities, and therefore they should be able to come together and work with the universities and say, this is the this is the kind of product we need for the oil and gas industry. We need you to train these people to that, and therefore both parties will come together and work out the curriculum. And but these days, but what is happening is that they just allow the universities to do whatever they want to do, or the universities will lay claim.
And then they come and complain.
Will lay claim, and then they will come and complain. And in fact, what they do now in many oil and gas companies or cement companies or something, that they will come in and take your best students, so to say first class, 2 or second class, then they now subject them to another 2 to 3 years of extra training
in-house,
which is not. I mean, that's waste of resources. So why can't we just make sure that right from the word go, and that's where quality assurance comes in, that you must get it right the first time. Once you get it right the first time, and there's zero tolerance to to second-rate decisions, then you are sure that everything will go well.
Prof, another hot topic is the issue of TVET, technical, vocational, some of all those fields. Now I want to ask, how does ODL make room for TVET curriculum and other practical-based courses, such as engineering, such as medicine? How does TVET ensure that students who go through such systems are able to come out with all the practical skills that they would have gotten if they had gone through the face-to-face system of education?
The technical vocation and environmental education system that we currently run does not allow students to fully grasp all the things that we need them to learn, and they also don't acquire all the necessary skills that they are supposed to give out, to elicit when they finish. And that's why society is not getting the best out of the system. The second is that parents often think, and it stems from the colonial system, where people are sent, they make us believe that secondary grammar school is better than technical grammar school type. But these days we have seen that the technical vocational education is going to be the order of the day for the future. In fact, it has now moved beyond that to saying that science, technology, engineering, and mathematics should be the order of the day.
Which is
because TVET is under that. And at the moment, we are told by the UNESCO documents that we don't even need to be told, we know that Africa has got the lowest base for science, technology, and engineering and mathematics in Africa. And that is why everyone is supposed to walk through all the major educational initiatives and documents that are available. For example, we have we moved from the Millennium Goals to the Sustainable Development Goals. That is called the Agenda 2030. All right, meaning that by the year 2030, all schools, all countries will have reached certain development. We also have the Africa we want 2063.
Okay.
That is, and this started about a few years ago.
Yes.
They're saying that in 50 years from then, when they started, at 2063, Africa will have had a prosperous development and all that happening. Then we also have the what is now called the Addis Ababa Convention, which also talks about science. And we now have the Continental Education Strategy for Africa, CESA 16 to 25 to 50, meaning that all these documents, if we are able to walk through them, and that is why it is important that all universities in Africa must study this, know them by page, every page, and use them, make sure they are integrated into their teaching and learning. But many of the universities, I'm sorry to say, don't have it. For example, when we had this, when I was the SG, and we had this Addis Ababa Convention, it used to be the Arusha Convention.
Yes.
That talks about intra-mobility of students, intra-African mobility of students, qualifications, and all that. Harmonization of qualifications. Most of the vice chancellors didn't even know anything. They've never heard about Arusha Convention. They don't know nothing about it. So it is now, it's imperative that all of us get together and understand what all this is. So these are the ones, let me go on, these are the ones that will now bring in the issue of science and technology and make sure that everything works. For example, we need to increase, what is happening, we need to increase our science and technology base, which we don't have. We must be, in these days where we are talking about, we are looking at 21st century skills. And 21st century skills is going to be dictated by artificial intelligence, by nanotechnology, by genetic engineering, by robotics, by cognitive technology. All these things will determine what we need to do. We must therefore produce the number of scientists and researchers that we need. Unfortunately, we don't have in Africa. China has recently produced STEM graduates in China. It's about 4.7 million.
Okay. And in India, the statistics for Africa?
In India, they have 2.6 million.
Okay.
USA has got 568,000 recently graduated STEM people.
Okay.
Africa has got less than 220,000. The whole of Africa, the whole of the 56 countries in Africa, together can only produce 200,000 science, technology, engineering, and mathematics graduates. How can we move on? How can we transform Africa? How can Africa develop if we don't move on? Let me just even give you another. Related to these, the STEM graduates, is research. The US produces every year about 1.5 million research documents.
Okay.
All right. China produces about 900,000. Japan about 700,000.
Okay.
All right. But unfortunately, Africa produces only 70,000 of research.
Which is on the low side.
It's not even on the low side. It's becoming non-existent. Okay. It is embarrassing low. All right. Beyond that, we talk about engineers and scientists per 1 million. Let me give you some statistics now.
Okay.
Brazil has got 168 engineers and scientists per 1 million. United States has got 4,000 per 1 million. Europe has got 2,500.
Okay.
Do you know how many engineers and scientists per 1 million
us.
that we have in Africa?
Tell
They're only
us.
35. In Africa
Only
today,
35.
only 35. The data we have, and you know that UNESCO has, that other people are quoting.
So this data is in
it's
which
very
year?
current. It's very current. We're talking about 2007.
Okay.
2006, 2007.
Okay.
So how will you? I mean, Africa cannot develop unless we focus, and that's why we need all hands to be on deck.
Sure.
First is that to have the top skills that we need, the people that we need to help develop Africa, Africa or African countries must make sure that one, they put all these documents, all these initiatives, they distill them and make sure that all our universities, all our institutions of higher learning know them and they implement them.
Okay.
That's number one. Two is that Africa must ensure that they fund research and STEM. We don't, like I said, we don't fund research. In Africa, we only have, like I said, on a yearly basis,
Sure.
we only produce about 70,000.
Sure.
And there are the first three countries, the top three countries that produce the highest amount of research in Africa, South Africa, number one, Egypt, number two, and Nigeria, number three.
Okay.
I think Ghana is probably number 15
But
or something like that.
Kenya should be there somewhere.
Kenya is somewhere,
And I think
is
Uganda
somewhere
as
along
well.
that. Yeah, there. So we need to have institutions to subscribe to all these initiatives.
Okay.
The Agenda 2030,
2063.
Agenda 2063, the
CESA.
the CESA 16 to 25,
Okay.
as well as the
Even
SDGs
the SDGs,
goals.
yes.
All these and the Addis Ababa convention.
Okay.
Everybody must subscribe to this, and government must ensure that this is happen.
Okay.
And in fact, there must be some punitive measures for universities who don't do this. If you don't do it, then you don't get the funding, you
Which
don't
is
get all
fine.
that. And then we must make sure that Africa prioritizes science, technology, engineering, and mathematics
okay.
education. Once you do that, then your technical and vocational education will be on the rise. And I mean, today, Ghana is known across West Africa for producing the best hairdressers,
Okay.
the best tailors,
Okay.
all right, the best artisans, and of course Ivory Coast. Now, once we know this, these people, many of them have never actually gone to the four walls of the University of Technical.
No.
But why can't we, you see, these days, and that's
Have a
why
program.
ODL comes in again, we take education to the people. You take the distance out of education for the people. So why can't we now organize this and make sure that people come for their certification?
Okay.
That somebody will come to University of Ghana,
Okay.
or will go to Cape Coast, University of Cape Coast, or go
Okay.
to Kwame Nkrumah University of Science and Technology, and he goes there for 6 months, for 9 months, and goes through the formal understanding of the hairdressing. The hairdressing.
But Prof,
So
that's
you
not
know,
being done now.
sorry?
It is not being done
It's
now.
not being done. I would
Yes.
believe we should do that, because we are moving into the 21st century where many more things will be needed. The technical and vocational skills will be needed. All your scientific skills will be needed. We need to know, I mean, when you go to a hairdresser, they
Okay.
will dye your hair.
Sure.
Has somebody told me about the chemistry, the
No,
biochemistry of
no,
that hair,
no.
and what it does to the dye, what the dye does to my head?
No.
So when you put them through all this, the physics of it all is another thing that we'll be talking about. The biology of it all. So all these things will be brought to
Okay.
bear for them to know what to
So
learn.
we'll go for a short break, but when we come back, I think you will still try to help us understand if the current system of e-learning we have now
Yeah.
allows for practical lessons to be learned. I think back to my first question. So we'll come back to that.
Good.
Okay, viewers, thanks for joining us. We are still having a very interesting discussion on open distance and e-learning, and our facilitator has also given us content relating to STEM. We'll be back shortly to continue with this interesting discussion. Don't go anywhere. staying tuned. We are discussing open distance and e-learning, and I have with me in the studio Professor Ougbemiro Jegede, who has been taking us through these concepts, trying to tell us some of the things we should be doing to improve the system. Prof, just before the break, you were actually giving us quite a lot of information on STEM, and then we were also discussing the issue of TVET. Now, the question is, if I'm a student and I'm learning online, for instance, and I'm taking courses such as medicine, courses such as carpentry, such as hairdressing, some of the things you said should not, they are really not being done. Yeah. But assuming I'm taking courses in those things, would the ODL give me enough practice? How will I really get to grasp the practical aspect of it?
Okay. In the world, and when you talk about knowledge and wisdom, you are only limited by your imagination. Okay. Unfortunately, when you ask somebody, if you ask somebody today, can I get to Abidjan in 10 minutes? The immediate answer you get is impossible. Okay. Because the person is limited by what he knows that currently happens. That for me to go, I have to fly to Abidjan. It will take me about 1.5 hours and be looking at. But he has forgotten that if you can think a bit better, I can get there. Why can't we not develop the technology that will make me go faster? Okay. People don't look at all these things and they will just commit to it. So that is what is happening today. People are using current educational systems, current limitations by the face-to-face student must be in class or laboratory type of thing to judge other aspects of alternative mode of learning like open and distance learning. Can we produce engineers through open and distance learning? The answer is yes.
Do some universities
and they're already doing it.
Courses? Okay.
Can we produce nurses through open and distance learning? The answer is yes. Some universities, even in Africa, are already producing nurses through open and distance learning. Can we produce doctors? Yes. Can we produce, I'm coming to that. I'm coming to it. Can we produce whatever, I mean, engineers? I've talked about engineers. But I wanted to say, can we produce, but I want to use that as an example. Okay. Have you ever thought of how the training of pilots that fly you from place to place in Africa is done? Most of their training, at least 60% of the training of pilots is done by simulation to start with. You cannot put a machine that is about $200 million, an airplane, in the hand of somebody who's just learning how to be a pilot and doesn't know. Of course, it will crash it the next minute. So what they do, they make sure that they have simulation rooms and everything exactly as if you are in the aircraft is done for you. Okay. And they learn through simulations. It is only when they have gone through all this that they now begin to take what they call their first guided flight. Then after that, they go on solo flight before they are certified. It is possible that you can do engineering the same way. It is possible that you can produce doctors the same way. You can do it by simulations. You can do it by virtual reality. You can do it by all sorts of modeling. In fact, in some universities, chemistry is no more done in the laboratory.
They use micro labs.
It is used in micro lab and it is done by simulation. It is done
Prof,
by
the question is that.
Let me just one more, that even in medicine, the face-to-face universities, many of the students don't have enough cadavers to practice with. Okay. So if you are telling me that it's better to train doctors on a face-to-face and these students don't have enough cadavers to train with, they don't have enough of the facilities to train with, then why can't you train them through a facility where it will be on one-on-one and they will be able to see these things done by simulation, by virtual reality and by whatever, and they can do it themselves. And you now, when you do this progress, like I know, okay, for example, in Australia, the University of Southern Queensland produces the best engineers in that country. So people go there and they do it by distance learning. Okay. So, and all what they do is to structure the courses they are learning, the programs in such a way that they will spend about 6 months doing the simulation. Then another 6 months, they are attached to the nearest engineering firms where they learn the practicals, where people go around and check where the owners of these engineering firms or the directors or whatever the engineers are used as role models, as facilitators, as teachers. The same thing. Therefore, if people come into the classroom,
sure,
or through open and distance learning, through e-learning, they learn about the physiology of the body, the anatomy of the body, and whatever. Then you can then you can now move them to the hospital, to a health center, sure, to wherever you can create. You don't even have to have hospital. You can create other means, other places where they can go to learn about this is firsthand. And then you now have, and thank God we now have lots and lots of private hospitals. Sure. So we don't have to be looking for concentrated place where they can do all this learning.
So do they quality check some of those institutions?
Of course, the quality checks are there because, of course, the person who owns that private hospital is already a consultant, maybe a consultant surgeon, is a consultant ophthalmologist. So they also know how to check it. They know what it is. I mean, of course, we know, that's why I'm saying we must also be talking about skills check. You must have the list of the skills that somebody must have and at what level before the person becomes a doctor. And once you can go through this and you can check it, then of course by the time the person finishes, and of course we now know, we used to think that once you graduate MBBS, then you know everything. But that's not the case. If you are just starting. Sure. If you are just starting, like, I don't know how to put it, you're more like, once you've gotten your degree, your first degree in medicine, you're just like starting, it's at a primary school level you are. And because you must now train to have your fellowship. Then you now become a consultant. Then you start specializing in very, very small area, very narrow areas. So this is what takes people through. Like I said, the Open University of the UK, for example, produces the best lawyers in the UK, produces the best people in business and all that. And in the ranking 2-3 years ago up to now of the ranking of the universities in the UK, the Open University of the UK came third, well ahead of Cambridge and Oxford. India has got 14 open universities, 1 or 2 government. That of government, which is Indira Gandhi Open University, has got 4 million students at the moment. And yet we don't hear of problems with quality. Because everything is, one of the things you do in open and distance is that all your quality checks will already have been pre-done. Everything is ready. And all you just do is walk yourself through them. Has this been done? You must do this, you must do that, you must do that. It's not like all the other system where government just wakes up and say, we are going to establish University of X. And they put the university there before anything happens. It's not the case. And all the materials that are used in open and distance learning are in the public domain. When they write all these materials, anybody can pick it anywhere in the world and look through it and make corrections. And now that we have the open education resources, the OER, where every country should have a repository, and Nigeria already has its own policy, has a repository. Anybody can go there and say, okay, I want to teach swimming, or if you like, as an example, I have course 101 swimming. Rather than sit down and get people to start writing the materials for them, materials are already written by other universities. So they put it there, you just go there and adopt it and take it and use it and change it, as long as you use what we call the 6 licenses, one of the 6 licenses of the Creative Commons. It allows you to use it and make sure it's available for others to do.
I wanted to ask you that if I'm a chemist, I'm undergoing training to be a chemist, and then I don't really get to see the physical chemicals, but it's sort of, we are using micro labs where they are showing me that maybe 20 grams of this chemical plus this plus that, and then they demonstrate, they show me. Now if I find myself in the real lab, or for medicine for instance, we go through simulations where you've seen the blood and all of that, but if I'm really with a patient, do you really think practically I would get the same feelings of confidence, the same level of, to be able to undertake and do what I'm supposed to do? Is it the same?
You should, provided, that's what I'm saying, provided. What you do is to make sure that the trainings you give people, they are coming into the university, to the classroom, or they are doing it on the internet or whatever, is interspersed with their real-time experiences. So when a student comes in to do, you see, in the open and distance learning, your course, a course like Physics 101 should last you for 17 weeks. 15 weeks for the for you to read another, 2 weeks for exam, and thereafter you go for the practical engagement. So everywhere you don't. That's what I'm saying again. We're only limited by our own. Don't limit yourself to the physical labs, face-to-face labs that you have in other places, in anywhere. I mean, if you cannot go to a microbiology lab or a biomedical lab in a university teaching hospital, you should be able to have the lab in a center for malaria training or center for disease control, or you may even have it in laboratories that have been set up by the oil and gas or by the cement. So what I'm trying to say, all the facilities that we have can and should be used. So there is nothing these days that must be specific to a particular thing.
Which is fine.
Nothing stops me from going to an institute of trypanosomiasis. And you have the lab. So all you do is make sure, for example, your first 3 years in medicine is virtually the same as you have for somebody doing physics or chemistry or biology or physiology or whatever, or pharmacology. So why can't we spread them through all these places where they can learn the basic sciences? So what you do therefore is that their practical work is not in isolation or it's not isolated from the theory they learn in through the computer or e-learning. What you are doing is making sure they refer, you cross-reference them all the time. You know, think back at what you studied on the this is what is happening now. Have you seen the, you know, so once you can integrate their practicals with the face-to-face, you get the best in the system.
All right, Prof. You know, in education, there are other things that we pick along. Things like mentorship, things like having classmates and strong associations and all of that. All of these form part and parcel of us when we even graduate out of the school. Now, if I'm an ODL student, am I missing out on some of these things?
Not at all. In fact, you have more of it. More of it in the sense that these days, you have, in the ODL system, you have a chance to go to study centers. And the study centers, you meet with your facilitators, your lecturers in code who help you with your studies.
You actually
you actually meet them.
Aren't there 100% distance where
there are some, I'm going into that. There are some where you have online facilitators. If it's 100%, you have online facilitators. But you also have not only online facilitators, you have within each group, you have what you call content management system or learning management systems that allow you to organize students into their own cohort, into their own groups of learners. So they become their own tutors themselves, they become their own role models, they meet and discuss things. For example, if students are taking course 480 or 408 in business, the university through its learning management system or content management system will set up groups for them, group discussions in each. So all the students that are studying that course will come together and they form a group. They even and you can do it now through Skype. You can do it through Zoom. You can do it through Telegram. You can do it through also that you can see yourself real time. So you are not missing out on whatever is happening. In fact, what many children prefer in some parts of the world now, even in Japan, this is the kind of thing that is happening now, that they will say, leave me alone to study, but if I want to play football, if I want to relate with my colleagues who are doing the same course or in class, so we should all meet in Accra Stadium. So you all meet in the stadium, you have a chat, they say bring your own food, bring your then you relate to yourselves if you must see yourself. Yes, people still believe that there has to be this personal face-to-face. But have you ever thought of it? You can buy your ticket online, you don't need to do anybody. All you need is to go and check in. You don't need, I mean, so there are so many things. You are being limited by what we already know. There are so many things you can do without seeing anybody else. You know, it's probably at the last minute, if you want that check, that you can do it. I mean, I can come into this studio right from the gate without talking to anybody, without seeing anybody. And I will come straight And now, because you will have sent me all the details,
To know,
you would have told me how to access the door, and without anybody helping me, I would, by my biometric systems, you will have loaded my iris or my thumbprint in the system. All I will do is just put my hand, the door, the first door opens, it brings me here, and then I have an app on my system, a Google app that it could be an AAU app that takes me through one room to the other in the whole of this place. Sure. So I don't really need it. So the app, once I say the app, I'm going to so studio, I'm going to meet Felicia, the app just brings me that and tells me that at 10:15 you should be seated. And I'm seated. And all you do is just come. In fact, you can talk to me without sitting here. Sure. You can stay in your house, and with the system set up, you can be talking to me and can be talking.
And we actually do that.
So that's, so you see, so that is the 21st century world that we are in now. We are 18 years into the 21st century, and 90% of our universities have not imbibed what we require to be ready for and to produce skilled labor for 21st century. The world tells us, the last World Economic Forum says that very soon, close to 200 million jobs will disappear. The jobs we have, we associate with the old system, the BSc physics, the BSc chemistry, which nobody does anymore these days in parts of the world, will disappear. But it also tells us that we are going to need new skills for the 21st century. But we will need, they say we will need 600 million workers.
But why would they disappear?
They will disappear because the sort of thing we used to do now will no more be needed.
Like?
All right. Very simple example. Sure. Let's even take this one. Do you know that, and I'm not saying that your job is threatened, do you know that this camera that you have could have been placed somewhere, and all you do with you talking to me will be remotely controlling it? And you don't even, you can control it with your biometrics, with your, the camera turns that way. So you don't need anybody to do that. So some of these jobs will disappear. But the second is that the kind of specializations which we have now will no more be there. Because in fact, in many, that's why in many parts of the world now, they no more do single subject degrees. It's no more BSc physics. It will be, to prepare you for the world, they will ask you to do BSc physics with international history. Or they will ask you to do BSc computer science with graphic design or with modeling.
What's the thought
so
behind
it allows
that?
you, it broadens your base. Because what the world needs now, and what we should be producing people for, what they call the top 10 skills, that by 2020, the World Economic Forum tells us that by 2020, every country, every university, every polytechnic, every secondary school should be thinking towards the following 10 top skills.
Can you run us through some of them?
Complex problem solving. Critical thinking. Creativity. People management.
These are all soft skills.
Exactly. Coordinating with others, emotional intelligence, judgment, decision making, service orientation, negotiation, cognitive flexibility. All these soft skills will now be linked up with your nanotechnology.
But these are not even taught in universities.
That's what I'm saying. They'll be linked up with artificial intelligence, nanotechnology, cognitive science, and all your technical things. That's why I'm saying we are still, in Africa, we have still not even scratched the surface of science, technology, engineering, and mathematics. These are skills that by now, our curriculum, the curriculum in the universities today, in the polytechnics today, again, I'm being provocative. The curriculum or curricula for the various courses we teach are already dated. They are already outdated, as you say it in Africa, but in other parts they will say it's dated. The Australians will say it's dated. It's dated by more than 50 years. Nobody does all these things anymore. So why don't we move on to the new world? We have a chance in Africa to leapfrog, and we are not doing it. Everybody still talks about the old system of running, running the university. I mean, for now, the university does not need to have sessional exams anymore. You're just wasting your money and time. You don't need it, all right? You also don't need graduations.
Prof, so are some institutions elsewhere not doing examinations outside Africa?
Yes, I can tell. In Singapore now, they have eliminated examinations. in many of their systems. They are moving from primary to secondary, and very soon in the university system, they will eliminate examination. Okay. Singapore is doing it. Malaysia, I'm sure, will soon do it. Hong Kong will soon do it, and all these other nations. So why must we be doing exams? Why must you do graduation? Do you know how much universities spend on convocation? Every year, University of Ghana, University of Ibadan.
But the students want it.
And well, they can do it differently. But you don't need this graduation. Okay. They want it because that's what the system has always told them that they must do. What you need is landmarks.
Okay.
All right? The first 3 years in the
okay.
That is where long, wide, and life sustaining. You don't need to stop. When you say, no, learning has not finished. It's just started. Sure. And you start moving. Okay. And that is what. Okay. Ready. Private sector are not ready. Okay.
That's the case.
The students, because have all the kinds of gadgets, or so what about? Okay. They can Google anything. And who is probably 64 does not know. He uses the note he has been using for 30 years.
Do we have lecturers who don't know how?
I mean, tables gathering, many of them don't use it. Even if they use it, they don't use it to the fullest advantage. Okay. They don't. Many of them don't know. Many of them don't know how to get into the internet. Okay. Many of them may know. Okay, they will say they subscribe to you. And I mean, anytime you go to a conference these days, ask, "Oh, do you have a telephone?" You say yes. "Oh, do you have an email?" Then the lecturer says, "Oh, yes, actually, but I don't use it." You know, some of them don't. I'm not saying all of them, but in a university, out of 100 lecturers, probably only 60, 70 use. Our children do all this now.
Yes.
That means they get onto. About the light and dark reaction. You will have known that phosphorylations. And it will have of 30 years. This student will just be laughing. That's why they are never and our lecturers are not up to. So the thing is that we need to train 40 million teachers for primary, secondary. Universities alone, Africa needs 465,000 lecturers. In some countries in Africa, once a lecturer or a professor reaches 60 years or 65, you say you should go away. Yeah, yes. Experienced people. Sure. How can you, just like in the hospital, you throw away the best doctors. You never throw away knowledge. Knowledge is in your brain. In fact, in other parts of the world, you should never ask anybody his age when he comes for an interview.
Why?
Because age is not the part of the problem.
Okay.
As long as I can move around, as long as I can use even if I cannot move, afterwards, people who are physically challenged, they work. So if I cannot move, what you want is what I can do with my brain.
Not
yes, not how old I am. So can I do the work? So at 65, can I still supervise students? Can I still generate research ideas? Can I still teach? Do I still have the knowledge? Can I reach onto the internet? We should have ways of checking them to be sure that they're able to do it. Once they can do it, they should be there. I know of some countries, I think Nigeria is one, where professors don't retire at 70. until 70. And even when they retire at 70, you still engage them on contract. They are being paid. But there are other countries where you say they should go away at 60.
And they don't even engage them
or
on
at 65,
contracts.
you drive them away. And you say there's no money to pay them. I mean, you don't throw away your best brains. Because you can, I've always told people, you can Google information about laundry, information about how to do a book, information about how to interview me.
Sure.
You cannot Google experience.
Sure.
If I put in somebody who had just come out of the secondary school or university in your place now, the person will fail.
Sure.
The reason why I'm doing very well is because of your experience over time. Why will AAU now just wake up one day and say you should go because you have reached a particular age? Doesn't make sense to anybody. And that's why the world begins to think about
a very big
the
topic.
skills here. The skills you have acquired is what should direct you to the future. When I spoke to you about the need to teach
skills,
they didn't talk about age.
Okay.
No, you know more. Never. In fact, I know that in Australia, in Singapore, in some other European countries, they will take you to court as an employer. If you ask an employee, how old are you? Really? At an interview, they'll take you to court because they will say, that's not the reason why you called me for. Okay. If that's the case, then somebody should be asking a question elsewhere. Why?
But Prof, is it not possible that maybe the organization, I mean, not the lecturers per se, maybe the organization has a long-term plan of trying to recruit younger blood to replace older people as succession planning?
You can have succession plans.
Yes.
You can have sustainability.
So that's the reason why
but don't come up plainly and tell me how. Is it, what I'm saying is that don't use age as the criterion.
Okay.
Use my proficiency. Okay. Use my ability to perform one function or the other, one activity or the other. And at the university level, it is the knowledge that matters. It is my brain power that matters. Can I still do it? Can I still reason like, this system? Can I still produce this? Can I still supervise students? Are my students current with date, with situations, with information? Once I can do this,
how do we strike a balance between wanting somebody who can do this in the next 10 years?
Now, what are the skills and attitudes you must done it from, and you can from in MG, Deloitte, Microsoft,
firms, right?
auditing firms. They sit for certain. Yes, at such and such. So I'm gone.
Okay.
But don't say because you are now. I mean, if you can use age, then you can use height. You see what I mean?
You don't need your height. No, you see, teach,
these are just natural attributes of people. You can use height. You can use where I come from. Then you can use what it doesn't make. All this don't make sense to people.
What should the traditional form of it, and is it enough? What should they be doing?
Okay. Into the university system, there was only one way to acquire knowledge. You must go to where that knowledge, the wise person is, the sage, all right? The Aristotles of this world. You go there. And then it was formalized, and that's how we all go to the university. But these days, you don't need to do that. You can learn through other means. So, number one is that you don't need to have such a place that everybody will go. Two, what should, because of the need more universities need to engage. In Africa, today we have about, all right? We have only 8% people in the universities, all right? Now, to accommodate everybody in Africa that wants to go to the university today, full of Oxford
Harvard,
or Harvard or all that. 15 people. So why why don't you eliminate this issue where the teacher is, where the university is, and now have an alternative? Which is happening now, which is beautiful, is that many universities are now doing what we call dual mode.
Okay.
They have both the formal face-to-face and they now have the ODL. Many universities that I know, in fact, in Nigeria now, they have at least, the government has licensed close to 30, 35 out of the 166 universities to do dual mode, combined ODL and face-to-face, apart from its dedicated ODL University, which is the National Open University of Nigeria, which is the biggest. It has almost 500,000 students or something like that. Many universities are going dual mode. If ODL is not that good for the system, tell me, why is Oxford doing it? Why is Harvard also rushing into open and distance learning? Okay. Why is MIT wanting to do it? Why is Stanford doing it? So, you're getting the point I'm making. Yes. It's because these other face-to-face, traditionally face-to-face universities have seen the advantages in doing ODL and why it is as good as, if not better than. Because the materials you develop for the ODL students, many of the on-campus face-to-face, they go to buy it. Some of them just go to steal it. Others go to borrow it, to read. This now use it to teach their face-to-face students. So they know it is better. So, like I said, we started by face-to-face, a system where we are having ODL and face-to-face cohabiting, living together in a university. Mark my word, 10, 15, 20 years from now, between face-to-face and every the content somebody wants to learn, when he wants to learn it, how he wants to learn it, and what he wants to learn it for. That's all. You no more ask about the time you want to come to school, whether you have 5 O levels and 2 A levels. All those are dated. Who is asking for that? You don't need it.
Prof, you know, there seems to be a high level of skepticism when it comes to ODL methods. In fact, I have heard a professor tell me that if you want to do your PhD, finish empty. No?
Yeah, the arguments are don't know anything. You know. So if in a hall that is round, you are saying, no, no. That is what very soon that will but they know 21st century
affordable in terms of cost. Okay. Because
with the study but once it gets going, it becomes very, very cheap.
Okay.
All right. The reason is simple. When I'm going to produce, okay, let's say that you are a caterer. All right. I'm trying to reduce to the level of everybody.
So that we understand. Okay.
If you're a caterer and you are going to cater for 50 people over the weekend for a reception after burial, which we do very much here in Accra or in Ghana.
Okay.
Now, think of how much it will cost you to produce the food for 50 people, as opposed to what it will cost you to produce food to service 1,000 people. So we are talking about economies of scale.
Okay.
It becomes more expensive to cater for only 50 people than what it is to cater for. So you might now be saying per plate to cater for 50 people will be 2,000 cedis per plate. But when it comes to feeding 1,000 people, per plate will come down to about 500.
Okay.
So that's economies of scale. So starting ODL is expensive.
Okay.
You know, developing materials, the few students you have, the little infrastructure you have, and all that. But you don't need classrooms anymore. So all those are eliminated. You don't even need, I mean, these days I hear universities say that we need to have 500 computer classes or something in a class. That is preposterous. I don't need it. It's completely dated, because every student has got his own computer.
Okay.
So why don't you just ask them to bring their computers?
Sure.
So that on the field of University of Ghana, I can just sit on the field because the Wi-Fi is there. I can even stay there. I don't need a class. I can sit there and access. So that is how cheap ODL becomes by economies of scale. You know, so yes, at the beginning it will be expensive. It's also expensive because in Nigeria or in Nigeria or Ghana or whatever, even in any African country, getting the bandwidth is very expensive because we don't produce them. We get them from other parts of the world. But by the time we are able to walk towards it, and every house gets it, it becomes very, very cheap. For example, in Singapore, you cannot build a house. You cannot even, an architect cannot plan a house, draw a house plan without making provision for internet connection, gas connection, water connection, and all the other electricity connection connected to the main grids, not just the local one. So if every house has got its own port where you can easily plug your, I mean, what, for me, I mean, let me tell you my own experience. I'm sure you may be, other people, listeners may have it.
And then after that, we'll have your final words.
Yes, they tell me that, you know, in those days when somebody comes to visit you, you are looking for water to give him, you are looking for food, for drinks, for whatever. You see the difference again?
And
you see how this, and the internet. And you know, in fact, these days, the first place, once you get to an airport, once you get to a hotel, once you get to a university, the first thing you're asking for is that do you have a Wi-Fi?
Sure.
They no more say, can I drink water? Give me water.
No.
So you see how the world is changing. Sure. This is what is going on. This is what is going to happen very soon.
Okay, Prof. So it's been a very interesting discussion. Would have your final words relating to open distance and e-learning, where if you would, I would give you the last minute to talk to the stakeholders directly. Yeah.
Well, it's been a pleasure being here and to talk to people, to all the universities, to stakeholders everywhere. I just need to inform people, not only inform, or others already know it, that open distance and e-learning, which started in 1728, has come to stay. It has become a very feasible, affordable, and sensible way of training people, of enhancing, of opening access to people. Open and distance learning is a weapon of mass instruction, and everybody needs to latch up on it. That's the only way Africa can leapfrog. That's the only way Africa can talk about achieving the SDG 4 goals of, you know, lifelong education, of making sure everybody goes to school. At the moment, we are told that if we want to achieve any of the SDG goals, it will take Africa another 50 years, not 15 years. But if we all embrace open and distance learning and e-learning and make sure that every child goes to school and that education is a right and not a privilege, and that everybody has got a value, everybody is entitled to it, then we will have gotten onto the right track of transforming and developing Africa.
Okay.
Thanks
so much for those final words.
Thank you.
We are hopeful that the right stakeholders have heard you and then we should expect to see something being done about this. So thank you to all for staying tuned. It's been another interesting discussion on the AAU TV, on the AAU Talks. My guest on the show has been Professor Ougbemiro Jegede, who is a Professor Emeritus at the National Open University of Nigeria. And our topic for discussion has been the relevance of open distance and e-learning in Africa. And my name is Felicia Kuagbedzi, and I've been the host for the show. Don't go anywhere. Stay tuned for the rest of the interesting programs showing on the AAU television. Thank you, and see you again tomorrow.